Hello and welcome for round 2 of the Automobilista Australia Rookie Cup. And this is season 3. We've just ticked over to qualifying, one-shot qualifying here in the Formula Trainers. We're at the Cordoba circuit. I don't believe it's in Brazil. I believe it's in Argentina, going off the top of my head. And tonight we've been joined by Scruff slash L Chief slash Matt Williams slash El Douche.
Oh, fuck you.
Good to see we've got off to a fantastic start on
Cordoba is in Argentina.
There you go. So obviously those that may visit this circuit in real life, just bring up the Falklands War of 1983 and I'm pretty sure things will go swimmingly. But we've got 9 cars in the server at the moment, with Wayne Whitmore being the fastest in practice, with Steve being just behind him, a couple tenths, about 10th and a half behind, and then Brendan Ross, who we do believe was sandbagging a little bit on old tyres and fuel, setting a 21-1. But won that qualifying, and
they're all going out together.
And they're all going out together, so it might pay dividends for some guys if they're at the back of that. And obviously this track pretty much being 4 or 5 corners and massive straights, it might pay to get a bit of a slipstream, but at the same time, if someone makes a mistake in front of you, your lap is ruined and you're going to be starting a little bit further down than what you'd like.
Yeah, this is sort of one saving grace for them there if something does go wrong in qualifying. It's such a small field, there's really not too much to be lost, although we did see last time these cars not the easiest to make an overtake in.
Yes, we did see not too many overtakes on track, so it will be interesting to see around this circuit, which obviously does have ample places to both overtake and to draft, if the overtaking numbers do improve. But I think just the track last time out didn't help, and then obviously we didn't have too many drives out of position, so that was another reason why I didn't think we saw too much overtaking. But we'll see this time out if there is any improvement.
Yeah, a little bit more opportunity here. You've got a couple deeper braking zones, and it's a slightly wider circuit, I think, so should make it a little bit easier for the guys out there. And if there's any slipstream as well off that back straight, they'll definitely be able to get a run.
We've got our first couple drivers beginning their laps, so Steve and Wayne have started their laps, and Steve was a little bit sideways through turn 1, so that would have cost him a tenth or two, possibly more, down this back straight. And obviously Wayne Whitmore, which I saw, went through there a bit smoother. And 32.5 first sector for Steve, and that's not a great first sector, so we'll just cut back and we'll see what Whitmore does. Yeah, 31.8, so there's 7/10 of a second right there. So Steve's going to have some kind of magical middle and final sectors, I think, to pull out pole position, or provisional pole position, barring a mistake from Whitmore at this stage.
We did see some fairly big variations in sector times between the drivers last time out, though. I think it was Whitmore. Again, the first sector last round, he was significantly faster than everyone else and lost it in the rest of the lap, or I could be backwards there and he might have been crap in the first sector and faster everywhere else.
Well, he's got two purples. He's got two purples at the moment.
2 tenths up in the middle sector as well now, so he's on a very good lap here.
21.6, so that's well off, obviously, Stewie's personal best.
Yeah, he did a 20.5 in the practice session. Whitmore we'll just call that a second faster.
Yeah, pretty much a second faster. Just cut back and see Termo is on a lap. He's a little bit off the pace. I think he's, judging by his middle sector, he's had a spin. Yeah, 30.9, so he's had a spin somewhere. And we've got Coops on track. Sanford is he's just crossed the line of 24.3. And we've got Coops and Glenn Miles are the only ones out on track at the moment. So we'll cut to Coops. He's about to start his lap. His fastest time in practice at 22.7. That would have landed him in the midfield. and he was 4 tenths behind Turmo, and obviously Turmo had a spin, so he could possibly, at this stage, if he puts his lap together, he could jump up to a provisional P3, because he set a time faster than Sanford and Turmo. But one lap qualifying, it's all about putting it together in the one lap that really matters.
Yeah, that's it, and it's one of the hardest things to get right is the one-shot qualifying, and something I absolutely hate because it's about 1 in 20 where I'll ever actually manage to put the lap together.
Well, it's all about confidence, but you can't be overconfident on these laps. But at the same time, you've got to be a little bit conservative so don't throw it all away. So there is a bit of a mental game goes into these one lap dashes. Coops in the first sector, 8 tenths down, but and he would have only been half a tenth off Turmo, but Turmo we know did have an error, spin of some kind in the middle sector. So
Made of fudge is the technical term.
yeah, 2.2 down in the mid.
Oh, Coops is...
Yeah, he's gone.
Coops it around.
Well, that's him done.
I thought for a sec he was going to save it, then remembered what cars they're in and realised I'd looked a fool.
Well, you can save them, but it will cost you a lot of time.
You're quicker just to take the spin.
Yeah, sometimes it's faster just to light it up, spin it back around it, and off you go, instead of having the slowest half spin in the world. And he's going to cross the line and go 5th with a 35.3. And Glenn Miles was about to complete his lap, but he's had a spin at the penultimate or the final turn.
Brian Walsh.
The final turn, so I don't know how he's managed that, but he's done it on the entry.
Brian Walsh is just leaving the pit lane now.
We've got Gary Neville as well.
Gary Neville.
Late joiner to the server, obviously joining us from all the way over in the United Kingdom.
Foggy old England. Foggy old England.
Yeah. He also set a 22.7 in practice. He didn't do too much running. So he's probably got a little bit of time in him the more laps he does. Because he hasn't obviously done as much running as anybody else on the track. Everybody's done 20 laps or more, while Gary Neville has only done 13. So
He's done a bit offline though, but definitely would have wanted to get a few more laps in during the practice session, just to a bit of a refresher with the circuit.
And he didn't quite get the nose in there for turn 2, and that's cost him a bit. He's and he's off in the escape road
up
there.
straight away.
Off in the escape road, so he's outbroke himself, and well, that's his lap done.
I think he's just looked at the times and thought I could still get into the top 4 at the moment.
Well, if he still pushes, he could give... Oh, I don't think he'll give Sando a chance, but he could certainly jump in front of Turbo and Coops barring a spin. Looked okay so far.
Grabbed a little bit of grass there, I think I just heard through my headphones.
Yeah, I think he took that on entry. A little bit wide there on the exit. But he's held onto it. He's missed the apex there at the final turn. It's going to cost him a bit of time, but that will jump him up into P4.
You can visually see that the time is there for him. He just does look like he just needs to wake up a bit to the track again. He just hasn't been out.
Yeah, just needs to warm up, get a few laps under his belt. And
Brian Walsh is about to come to the end of his first sector.
Yeah, he will be his second last driver to set a lap. Obviously, Brendan Ross and Walsh, the only ones not to set a lap time. And Walsh, he's run wide there at turn 3, and now he's spun it. So these guys having a bit of trouble stopping the car there at turn 3. It is a little bit difficult. There's not too many reference points for drivers to pick a braking zone.
Yeah, and if you get through the kink that is turn 2 a little bit too aggressively, you can have the car still a little bit unsettled by the time you get on the brakes as well, which can lead to a few spins.
Yeah, even if you do sort of pull it up for turn 3, I did find in the running I've done is that you're still battling the car a little bit, so you've got to...
It doesn't like those tighter corners. It doesn't like most corners, but it especially struggles with those ones.
Yeah, you got to juggle the steering and the accelerator a little bit just to sort of get it so it doesn't oversteer too much and to straighten it out for you. And obviously, if you guys have struggled with that, and Walsh goes P7, so he jumps up in front of Glenn Miles and he's 1.4 behind Coops. And, well, we've still got 6 minutes left in this qualifying session. We may have to shorten these sessions in future.
Yeah, I thought I'd asked you enough questions when I was setting the server up, so I just left that.
But obviously, probably what will probably happen next time out is that we'll shorten the session and then we'll end up having about 15 more drivers. So
That's how it usually works.
that's just about how it usually goes. Yeah.
You just know that, knowing Brendan Ross as well, you just know he's going to sit there until the bitter end, just so we have nothing to talk about.
Yeah, so we're not going to have much to talk about. I actually really do need to go for a little break. So if you could keep those entertained, if you can, Scruff, for just a moment or two, I shall be back.
I can certainly try. Well, dear viewer, while Lewis goes and voids his bladder, hopefully just his bladder, because if he's got to take a crap, we could be sitting here for quite a while just looking at nothing. So I receive a flurry of messages from Brendan Ross explaining to me that he is rather enjoying my suffering by myself with nothing to talk about, and I really don't like him for that. So we're going to have a look at the live chat and see what's going on. Hello, Scott and Mike Colston, and I'm not going to try and enforce it. Yeah, there we go. What's going on? Lewis, hurry up. How much has he had to drink? I'd go look at other cars, but I don't control the broadcast cameras, so this is getting even more difficult by the second. Brendan Ross once went on vacation to Argentina because he thought it was Colombia and he was trying to do some smuggling, and well, he didn't look too bright after that effort. He did eventually get some white powder and he got back and, well, it was flour. Which really is about all you need to know about the man with the number 1 on the side of his car. He didn't put it there, he just got lucky that there was one. I'm very bored. I need Lewis. And he did lose his virginity to an 82-year-old fisherman by the name of Pepe. He says he was rather gentle. Oh, Lewis is back.
I've returned.
Thank fuck for that.
So, what were you going on about? As Brendan Ross finally gets underway with 3 minutes remaining to begin his one and only hot lap in qualifying 1.
I just thought that people should know about his failed efforts as a drug smuggler. And he mistook Argentina for Colombia. Colombia for Argentina, went to the wrong country, came back with flour, but as Scott rightly pointed out in the live chat, he did lose his virginity while he was over there. Which is, of course, to a 80-something-year-old fisherman by the name of Pepe.
Not the only one. I believe you lost your virginity to Pepe too, I believe.
Different Pepe, that was in Chile.
Ah, yes. It's a pretty easy mistake to make.
He was very aggressive.
All Pepes are. But,
I see you've got a similar story.
I may or may not. But just right on board over the left shoulder of Brendan Ross as he takes us for his outlap.
Please don't leave.
I'll try my best not to. So let's see how he handles this lap. Obviously, I did hear that he was running on old tyres and a lot of fuel in practice. So it seemed like he was sandbagging a little bit. So we'll finally see his true pace and see, as he goes around on the massive exit curve there.
He's just getting some warmth in
turn 6. Certainly would have warmed the rear tyres up. And this is really where the lap begins, sort of that penultimate turn there, is the apex, the final turn.
Still looks to got a decent run out of it though.
Yeah, cost him too much time. Let's see how he takes turn 1. Downshift a little bit. I don't think he's lost time, so it's a decent turn 1 there. Didn't lose the back end like Steve.
It definitely looks like Rossi's pushing quite hard here, but he'll just be enjoying the lower fuel load. More than
a little bit of a lift and lost the back end there at turn 2. That's going to cost him time. 2 tenths down. You should be able to take that corner flat, and he's not done that, so he's dropped time there.
He's gone wide there as well. His car is better through the tighter parts of the track after that third corner, so we'll see what he can do from this point onwards.
He certainly left time on the table. So he handles turn, I think this is turn 7. A little bit wide there, but not too bad. He's 7 tenths down, so if he carries on the way he's going, or if he maintains the final sector, he'll stay second, but he's not going to make up 8 tenths of a second in the final sector.
If he does, I got nothing.
Yeah, but everything on the exit there, and he drops more time, so he dropped half a second to Whitmore in that final sector, and he will qualify 3rd for race 1, and evidently not happy, and he's written off his Formula trainer. So there it is on the left hand side there. Wayne Whitmore on pole position, Steve in P2, Brendan Ross P3, Lee Sanford P4, Gary Neville P5, Termo P6, Coops P7, Ryan Walsh P8, and Glenn Miles in P9. Well, normally we'd bring up the championship standings and all that stuff during the warm-up session, but obviously once the driving briefing does conclude and we do come back, we don't have any of that because certain drivers were told to change their classes last week and they didn't do that. So we're not going to be showing the championship standings because obviously, yeah, a couple of drivers haven't changed their classes, and because even though it gives us the option on live races to change, it actually, for whatever reason, live races, it has a hissy fit and crashes. So we can't do it as an admin. So it's on the onus of the driver to change class. So hopefully, obviously after this round, drivers do change.
And to fill time after the briefing, I would hope that our precious viewers would send in some comments and questions in the live chats. Otherwise, we may have to go into the sexual endeavours in the South American continent and of the other drivers.
We certainly do not want to go down that road. But anyway, we'll just take a short break as we conduct the drivers briefing, but we shall be back. Hello, and we're back. We are back from our break and the driver's briefing. We've got 3 minutes left of the warm-up. We've got time to kill. We don't have actual championship standings because, as has been brought up before, some drivers need to change to their correct classes. But I suppose I could go over the basic standings. So I think Wayne Whitmore leads the Pro B class on 75 points, but he's currently listed as rookie, so he's one of the drivers that has to change over to Pro B. Termo is second on 66 points in Pro B, and Brendan Ross is third on 65 with Steve on 52. We also have Scott Murrell is signed up, as is Cracker, but neither of them is racing, and in fact Scott Murrell is in chat at the moment, so you're a pussy for not showing up. And then on the rookie side of things, we only had 3 drivers show up. So we had Coops on 60 points, Luke Joyner on 48, and Glenn Miles on 42 from the first round. So they're the only drivers that have rocked up for rookies, and we've got Mike Coulston, Eli Donaldson, Damien, Jaden Draper, Brian Walsh, who is here tonight, Brownie, River Whisper, Gary Neville, who is here tonight, James Owen will need to change to Pro B when he does show up, and Shane Whitt also signed up that haven't shown up. And also, in future, we are looking to implement some kind of, or we're thinking about introducing some measures where if people do sign up for every single series and don't show up, that there'll be a cooldown period where if you do that, you'll be prevented from signing up to a future series for a while. So if you do sign up for a series, guys, please show up. And if you're obviously a bit iffy on showing up, just just don't sign up and just leave it. That way we don't have all these extra spots taken up, and it discourages people who might want to join the championship. And do have a look at how many drivers are permitted. Say in this class there's only 20 cars, or 20 cars and 20 seats available. People might look at all the people signed up and think, oh, there's no seats left, and then not come around, but only 5 or 10 people are racing. So if you do sign up, guys, please try and make as many races as if you can. And if you're not 100% sure you can make most of the races, then just hold off on signing up, just so you have more free seats for people that may want to join the series on a more permanent basis. But in the warm-up at the moment, Gary Neville's already immediately gone faster than what he did in qualifying at 22.6. And Steve has gone much slower with 21. Well, he's 21.6 seconds behind, so he's at a 44.2. So quite a bit off in the one time lap he did, but we're just about to tick over. And Gary Neville once again improves 22.2. And that's the end of that. That's the end of his warm-up session. We'll just scroll through. Brendan Ross. Oh, there we go. That's all done. We've ticked over. And now race 1, which will, well, all races tonight are 11 laps long, and there's 3 races. So just to remind everybody home, 2 qualifying sessions, 3 races. The final race is reverse championship order. So it'll be interesting to see how a couple of the drivers do tackle it. See, as we spoke about in qualifying and as we saw in the first round scruff, that overtaking wasn't particularly easy at Yakarapagawa, but I'm pretty sure here at Cordoba it'll be a bit easier.
You've been practicing pronouncing that. Yeah, definitely going to be a little bit easier here. Top guys do look like they're going to be a fair bit closer. Although last time we did get a bit of a gentleman sausage tease in each race when it looked like we were going to have a good fight, and then someone would make a mistake and it would all just split apart again.
Yes, well, hopefully Steve and Wayne and Rossi give us a good fight up the front. I think there'll be those three will probably be in a little bit of a class of their own, and then we'll have a little bit of a golfing class between them and the rest of the field. But we'll just roll through the grid. Obviously got Wayne Whitmore on pole position in the number 4 car, and Steve in P2 in the pretty sure it's black with a yellow and red trim on the sides. He's in the number 8. Brendan Ross with the number 1 in the, it looks a little bit like the old Kmart cars, but in the form of the trainer variety there. He starts P3, and then we've got Lee Sanford, who hasn't signed up for the championship, so he'll have to do that after this race. He will start P4, and then we've got Gary Neville P5, Termo P6, Coops P7, Brian Walsh P8, and then Glenn Miles P9. And in chat there, Mike Coulston, that's alright Mike, we do know obviously you're in a bit of a holding
sticky situation.
Sticky situation. And you show up whenever you can. It's more that comment is more aimed at a couple other drivers that have signed up to every series they've ran, and they've probably shown up to maybe one practice session. Well, you on the other hand have done as many races as you can, so it's all right for you.
And hence we have the pussy amendment.
Yes. So just about to form up. Still got one corner to go.
They really do look like freaking lawnmowers, don't they? Just from the front with the floor design, you just expect to see a blade spinning around under it.
Yeah, they just need a massive black box at the back of the
car. Why not
cars.
a white box or a yellow box?
Yeah, I suppose we could paint it a different colour.
One of each.
Why not? So the driver's forming up, which we'll try and find. I suppose this camera view will suffice.
And we'll get 2 men standing on top of a thing.
On the thing?
Yeah, on the thing. Underneath the other thing.
Oh, yeah, they're over there. Alright, 1 light, 2 light, 3, 4, 5. And we're away. Looks like Ross got a decent start from 3rd. He's got a much better start than Whitmore. And he splits both Whitmore and Bolger. Bolger ran the outside of Whitmore, and Ross into the lead into turn 1.
That was a Bolger-like start there from Whitmore. Bolger himself getting off fairly decently, but Ross absolutely blasting past both of them. But now Bolger with a look on the inside of Ross. And first lap, that's getting ballsy already. And
he's got he will have the inside for the next corner at turn 3 as well. As we got car off, I believe that's Sanford off on the grass there, way off into the boonies, and so is Ross. So both those cars, white, blue and red cars are off, and Ross is well down now. So that's Bolger into the lead, and he's got 7/10 over Whitmore. Gary Neville now up to P3, Termo right behind him in P4, Coops P5, Brian Walsh P6, Ross has dropped to 7th, Miles 8th, and Lee Sanford well back now.
Sanford is currently in the north of America. He went so far off.
Yeah, I believe it's in Canada, I think. So,
hey?
Yeah. He's obviously wanted a bit of maple syrup, and I think he got some. So he's got a while to catch up. So it looks like Bolger's actually put a little bit of time in that final sector, about 4/10 in that final sector there on Whitmore, but he's ran wide, very wide at turn 1 by the look of it. At least from, yes, he has on that camera view, and that's going to close that gap right up. And yeah, Whitmore's going to have a run into turn 3 with the massive slipstream all the way to turn 2 and after.
Yeah, Ross getting a good run through the final corner now up alongside Brian Walsh going into turn 2. Starting to make his charge back up the field, up into 6th place now behind Coops.
Yeah, so he's got to make up 6.7 seconds, and he's only got another 10 laps to do that, so he's going to have to absolutely fly or hope that Bolger and Whitmore battle and cost each other a lot of time if he wants to get back in contention for this race. But speaking for the battle of the lead, Whitmore is all over the back of Bolger's gearbox and looking mighty racy at the moment.
Gary Neville's done well at the start too. He's up in 3rd place. Great effort after his limited running in the practice session.
Yeah, he's kept it nice and clean so far, kept out of all the trouble, hasn't gone off anywhere. So, Whitmore into the wall there at the final turn, and that's cost him a bit of time, and it might have even damaged his car a little bit, but it wasn't significant damage. But being an open wheeler, you don't want to hit the wall like that.
Yeah, not hard to damage these open wheelers at all. The suspension very fragile. Ross now up into 5th place in his recovery. Termo right on the back of Gary Neville here. He'll be looking to get through some stage in the course of this lap, I'd imagine.
Yeah, so that is the majority of the field right there on our screen. And there it is. There is Sanford. And Miles has headed off somewhere, so he's now last. And after his little escapade into the barrier there at the final turn, Whitmore has closed back in on Bolger. And Bolger using all the track there. And you don't want to use too much of the high curves because they will throw these cars around quite violently.
Yeah, very stiff little cars with not much weight behind them either, so very easy just to sort of flick them up much. Like we can see your mouse, Lewis. My God.
Oh, disaster. Absolute disaster.
This is amateur hour.
Well, I don't claim to be a professional, so every hour on our broadcast is amateur hour.
I wouldn't go that far. I mean, I think we're pretty great. Great.
As Whitmore,
I wish I was funny.
Whitmore fastest lap of the race, a 21.2.
Oh, Bolger using absolutely every available bit of tarmac on the exit of, I believe, turn 1. I wasn't watching.
Yes, it was turn 1, and now Whitmore alongside. So Whitmore will take that position into turn 2. And Bolger is, Whitmore all kinds of sideways through turn 2. But,
Bolger just a couple wheels on the grass there. Pulls it up alright.
Bolger not quite close enough to take advantage of that slide from Whitmore.
Wish he was a little bit too hard, I think. Just caught that grass, so even if he was close enough, he probably would have had to back out of it.
He's had a good run through turn 4 though, so he might have a little look to turn 6. No, not quite, but it will be interesting to see now how Bolger goes now that he has the slipstream, and we'll be hoping he can force Whitmore into a mistake.
He's definitely able to stay on the back of Whitmore though.
It might help him a little bit because obviously being in the lead, being the pioneer, he was a little bit all over the place. Perhaps if he's following Whitmore a little bit, he can sort of gauge the lines that he takes and sort of perhaps copy him a little bit and improve his own lap time.
Looks like Coops has had it off a bit further back too. He's behind Brian Walsh and over 18.117 seconds behind Bolger at the moment.
Oh, we've got Gary Neville well off at turn 1, so he's going to drop down. So he'll drop behind Termo, so we'll just have a look at the replay here and see what has happened.
Good news there for Ross as well. It's one position. He doesn't have to push quite as hard to make up now.
And Neville just pushed a little bit too hard through the mid-corner.
Oh, Whitmore with a lock up. Whitmore wide in turn 3. Where Bolger to close back up a little bit. He just managed to stretch it out there, but now Bolger right back up behind him.
Well, Whitmore just set the fastest first sector of the race, and that mistake has allowed Bolger to close right back up once again.
Very different lines these two are taking in most corners as well.
Got a yellow flag ahead. That must be Glenn Miles. Hopefully he doesn't rejoin the track in front of these guys. And he hasn't.
Ooh, right off the edge of it there. Looked a bit closer from my camera angle than it did on yours.
He's trying to get moving. That's Brendan Ross that's just gone past him there.
Yeah, these cars not the easiest to get off the grass. They just seem to bog themselves down quite easily. Whitmore's extended that gap back out to over 8/10 of a second again from Bulger.
Yeah, purple in the first and final sectors was a bit more. Instead of 1 minute 21.6, just 4/10 off his personal best, but the fastest middle sector is a 29.0, I believe. So there's still quite a bit of time in that.
Bulger just quicker again there in first sector.
Yeah, turn 3 there. He does look a little bit better under braking, and he has closed it up there every lap we've been looking. So
much tighter there as well. Bulger is definitely looking to try and get that gap back down and give himself a chance here.
He has to stay within slipstream distance, because if he loses it, I don't think he'll catch Whitmore again.
A little bit crossed up on the curb there for Bulger.
And I think if he wants to get a pass done, this is where, not to overtake the penultimate corner, but that's where you've got to get the good run through the penultimate corner. You've got to get through this final corner nicely. You're not going to pass into turn 1, but you want to be close, and then you want to get a good mid and exit from turn 1 here, and then get the good slipstream to turns 2 and 3.
Yeah, the final 2 corners is going very wide there again.
Yeah, turn 1 looks to be his trouble spot, and he's just going in well too hot, or getting on the throttle a little bit too early, and he's just wrecking it lap after lap.
The final 2 corners here really are all about just setting up the run all the way down to turn 3. If you get turn 1 right, as Bulger's learned, will help you out, and if you get it wrong, it will cost you a significant amount. He's now over 1.5 seconds behind Whitmore.
Yeah, so that's cost him a good 8/10 of a second. And we do have it. I did hear, sounds like someone had gone off. It's like Glenn Miles again. He's gone off. Just have a look on the replay. What has he done here? He's lost it a turn. I don't know how he's managed that. I honestly don't. Just have a look on the replay. Well, that corner should be flat out, and I don't know how to explain that, but we'll just cut back to the battle for the lead at the moment. And fastest lap, Wayne Whitmore, 1:20.6. But Bulger was able to match him, really. He only dropped the 10th in the middle sector, but he matched Whitmore in the final sector. So it's just about turn 1 for Stuyve. If he can get that right, it'll set him in good stead for obviously the second and third races.
We've got Ross now within a second of Gary Neville, so he'll be looking to make his way through not too distant future. Looks like Gary does have fairly good pace though. It's taken Ross, the reigning champion from last season, quite a few laps to close that gap up.
Yeah, on that last lap, Ross at 22.2 and Gary Neville at 22.3. So whenever I've looked at the lap time, Neville's been pretty consistent with the mid to low 22. So he's done a pretty solid job after that little off early on. And Turmo in front of him again, he's sort of low 22s consistently as well. But just saying that, he's just run wide there at turn 6, and it's going to cost him a little bit of time. And behind that, we've got Ross now, he's right behind Gary Neville, who I think he'll probably get past him in the next lap or two, judging on how close these two are.
It just needs to be patient here. There's Rossi, and he should be able to find his way through before too long.
I think the battle for the lead, going by live timing, as we stick with this Ross Neville battle, the battle for the lead is pretty much over. Last lap for Bulger, 22.1, and it was a 1 minute 20.8 for Whitmore. So that battle for the lead is pretty much over, barring a mistake.
There's 3 seconds between them now, so you'd have to say that's Whitmore's race to lose now.
And so we'll just stick with this battle for
Ross. Ross right on the back of him now. I think last time we coined the term under his rear gearbox.
Yep. Quite might have even been revving out there, because he wasn't going any faster despite being right behind in the slipstream. So perhaps revving out just a little bit and wasn't able to close in.
Yeah, he was having trouble finding the slipstream in practice to test that one out.
Bit of a lip there at turn 4, which is surprising. You want to take that flat if you can.
He's cars are quite strange. Trying to set up from what I can tell. They've got no power. It's hard to gauge the gears perfectly if you
He
can't
gets
actually get into
very
the
sideways on the entry to the penultimate turn, and that's dropped him a second and a half at least.
Gary was taking a fair bit of curb there too, just after that, so not quite as bad as it could have been, but definitely not ideal. He's now 1.1 seconds behind.
Gary Neville, once again, very consistent with 22.2 on that lap. So
yeah, just a slight mistake there from Gary. At the same time, Rossi made a much bigger mistake. I think that's really been Rossi's saving grace.
yeah, I don't think you probably won't get him now. I don't think he's right behind him, obviously last lap, but couldn't get the job done. And now he's got to make up that time with this being the penultimate lap. Behind them, Brian Walsh and Lee Sanford going at it for P6, side by side to turn 1, and Sanford around the outside, and that looks like Walsh was very cautious there to turn 1. So he's, well, I was going to say he's going to have the slipstream. He's going to stay in the middle of the road there and cost him a little bit of time in the slipstream. And again, he's having a look. He should be staying in that slipstream. And now he's going to give himself a more narrow line and even downshifts into turn 2. I don't know. He's probably not watched anybody else drive the track if he drives like that.
Sandro's gone around.
And Walsh wanted to join him there. They both slowed down too much. If they were both on the throttle, it would have been fine. But they lift off, and if you lift off in these things around the corners like that, guess what? That's what happens. You go round. So something for these guys to think about. But Walsh says, thank you very much. I'll take P6 back.
Ross has made another mistake. He's 3.5 seconds behind and did a 24.2 on the previous lap.
Yep. He's just overdriving it, I think, and that's one thing in these cars you can't do. You might be able to overdrive a touring car, you might be able to overdrive a supercar, you might even be able to overdrive, well, you can certainly overdrive a Mini, but or a Lancer, but you cannot overdrive these cars. You do have to drive them very smoothly, and it's all about, obviously, your driver inputs and how smooth and consistent you are with them, and I think he's finding that out the hard way.
Yeah, one thing we know for Rossi is he does like to be driving as hard as he possibly can the whole time, and these cars you maybe can do that for a lap or two, but you do have to drive a little bit within yourself and just keep the car pointing just keep the wheels in line, really. That's about all there is to it.
Yeah, and we've got Wayne Whitmore going through the final turn, exiting the final turn, and he'll take race 1 of round 2, so continuing his hot form of the season. And Steve Bolger will finish 4 seconds adrift in P2. And Gary Neville's moved up. So we've had Turmo make a mistake. Turmo into turn 6, drifted it around. What's he done here? At the penultimate turn. The penultimate turn, he's just gone in too hot, lost the back end, and Turmo lost it. So Gary Neville takes the final podium place. Brendan Ross takes P4. Which he doesn't seem too happy with, and Turmo, he was running in 3rd for the majority of that race and blew it on the 2nd last turn, and he'll finish in P5. And we've still got Brian Walsh to finish in P6, and he's actually got Coops behind him. Coops 4 seconds behind, so Coops made a couple errors in that race to find himself behind Brian Walsh. And Walsh only has the final turn to navigate.
One thing with the Rookies Cup is if you try and predict what's going to happen, you're probably going to be wrong.
Certainly so, as Brian Walsh finishes P6, Coops will cross the line to finish P7, Lee Sanford in P8, and Glenn Miles a lap down in P9. So, in some ways at the front it was predictable, and in other ways it was down in the midfield and lower down it was a bit unpredictable, with a couple errors right at the death for a couple drivers, obviously changing the results up quite a bit.
Yeah, nothing can take away the quality of the drive that was though by Whitmore. After a poor start, he caught back up very quickly and then was able to extend out to almost a 5-second lead at the end. So great drive there from Wayne Whitmore.
Certainly was. After that poor start, it was very smooth took his time, waited for the Bolger mistake, and then didn't make a mistake. Well, a major mistake anyway that enabled Bolger to get back in the lead, and then sort of was consistently just a little bit faster and got the job done. So that's, I think his second or third victory of the season so far, but he will be he is in the Pro B class. It just needs to be updated on live races, as is obviously Steve, Brendan Ross, and Termo. They're all Pro B runners. And so I think Gary Neville actually was the highest of the rookies in that one.
Yes, third place overall behind Bolger and Whitmore. So good drive there from Gary after Termo's mistake on the final couple corners.
Yeah, he certainly did a very good job there in that race. Very, very consistent low 22s for the mid to low 22s throughout the rest of that race. He just drove at his pace, and I think that's something that probably, ironically, Ross probably needs to learn a bit in these cars, is that it's better to race at your own pace instead of driving at 10 tenths the entire race, because that's when the errors come, and that's where the bad results come. So if, obviously Ross wants to get better results, obviously in this series and in obviously in GT series and supercars and the like. He probably needs to dial it back just a little bit and have that consistency bring him some better results.
Yeah, I tuned out right at the end of that sentence, looking at the in-game chat and trying not to have a chuckle to myself. Steeps. I'm sure you're looking at it too.
I can indeed see it, but just take a short. We'll just take a short break between this and qualifying. Qualifying will be in about 3 minutes' time, so we will take a short break, but we shall be back for qualifying too shortly. Alright, welcome back. We're just about to tick over to the qualifying session. And hopefully next race is a little bit more action-packed and we see some closer racing.
Good God, I'm still tangled.
And rip Scruff for being tangled up in whatever he's tangled up in.
Everything.
Yep, so that is Scruff done and dusted.
I'm back, I've survived.
Well, that's a disappointing climax, it has to be said.
That's what a lot of women have said to me.
Yep.
I say a lot, I mean two. Pepe was happy.
Well, once again, one-shot qualifying, and we've got people waiting for the session to go green, and a bit of a car park at the exit of the pit lane. Don't know why people do this, but they've got 10 minutes, or 15 minutes in fact, to time their qualifying run, but it's obviously these guys just want to get it over and done with straight away.
Oh, I mean, can you blame them?
Well, I can, because...
No, well, that explains why you did.
Yeah, I can, and I will. You got 15 minutes out there to go for a lap where the track, obviously when everybody else does a lap, the track is a little more rubbered up, and obviously you'll have the track to yourself because there's only 9 runners out there. So, I'm not sure why you'd risk having a possible accident or being possibly blocked, but obviously these guys want to take that risk.
Well, I mean, that's what motorsport's about, taking risks and etc.
Well, no, I suppose.
I'm just trying to give them a little bit of credit. It's not going well.
Yeah. It isn't
That's
going
the
well.
most disappointed tone I've ever heard come from someone's mouth. Is, yeah.
Yeah.
You hear the heartbreak in him, people. This man needs help. Send cuddles.
I just wish people would learn. Because I can just... Someday it's going to happen. It happens all the time where people get blocked in qualifying or they stuff their lap up because someone else is on track, and it's like you had the chance to go out on an empty track and they didn't do it, and they just don't... They don't learn from these mistakes, and it's just disappointing.
Perhaps they should listen to Lose Yourself by Eminem.
Yes.
I think that would help them all out a lot.
And hopefully we don't have any of Mum's spaghetti all over the pit lane as Coops runs wide in the exit of turn 2, and well, he just manages to hold on to it there at turn 3. 32.516 at the end of the first split. Wayne Whitmore 32.4, so he's a little bit off this time out.
I think the track condition will be catching these guys out once again, and I think they'll all be, especially Coops. I think he was one of the ones who had issues in the first qualifying session. He'll be very happy for race 3 where there is no qualifying session.
Yep, and 30.7 for Coops in the middle sector, not too bad. And we'll just see Whitmore 29.3, so 1.4 faster in the middle sector. Coops coming out of the final turn, he will do a 124.1. And Whitmore crosses the line and he'll do a 21.9, so not too bad. I think the pole time in race 1 is a 21.6, so he's not too far off. And we've got Termo out there on track, so we'll just follow Termo. We've also got Glenn Miles and Lee Sanford on circuit. Termo coming out of the final turn. He does a 22.6, so he's pretty much 7 tenths off, so not a bad effort there from Termo. Glenn Miles must have had a spin because he's 9 seconds down.
Miles and Sanford next on the track. Sanford just completing the second sector of the 30.0. He's about 7 tenths down through the middle sector on Whitmore and 6 tenths down through the first sector, so he's a fair way off the pace.
Sets a 23.7, and that's good enough for P3. Jumps him in front of Coops and Glenn Miles, who set a 1:34.5. And now it looks like we're going to have a little bit of a lull, so we're going to have to find something to talk about. So
what's going on?
So I think we'll keep with the South American theme. So who is your favourite South American dictator?
So many to choose from.
And if you can't say obviously a dictator, perhaps drug lord of some kind.
Oh well, Escobar was. It's probably a little bit, bandwagon to go with, but you can't go past him.
Good old Pabs.
He was the boss, man.
So he was the Bruce Springsteen of drug lords.
No, I said he was the boss, man.
Yes.
What about you? Who's your favourite American drug lord?
I'm not too fond of the South Americans, so I couldn't tell you. So I was just, I know you have more experience in that area, so I thought I'd bring it up. And considering we are in this part of the world, so I can't exactly say I have a favourite.
You like the Afghanis, don't you?
Afghanis, nah. I was a big fan of Saddam. That big cheesy mustache was just. I do miss it. The world does miss the big mustache of Saddam. Sure, he did gas people, but that mustache was majestic.
You can't stay mad at that mustache.
You certainly can't. I'd certainly love to sell him some arms of and weapons of mass destruction if I could. We've got Gary Neville beginning his lap. Looks like a nice, decent run through turn 1 there as he turns to a more serious topic. In the chat, Mike Coulston, his favourite is Pablo with the fantastic CV that Escobar has. And looks like I think that's Sanford in the background, a little bit sideways on the exit there. Neville, what can he do on the second split? 32.9, so half a second down, but a solid platform for his lap. He'll certainly think that Termo is within reach. Obviously, weren't too far apart pace-wise in race 1. But, he's ran wide there, and that's cost him a lot of time. So they'll probably jump him down below Coops.
Ross is on a very good lap here.
So it was Ross, it wasn't Sanford. So
the fastest first sector was a 32.438.
He's ran wide. He's run wide at turn 6, and he's 3.5 tenths down. So what can he do in the final sector though? What can he conjure up? That said, he's going to need an elite final sector because a 20.1 in the final sector is very quick from Whitmore, and this final sector hasn't looked too good.
Yeah, he's scuffed it.
Yeah, he scuffed it. That'll be 22.7, so that's behind Termo.
Third again. Oh, he's furious with himself. He's utterly ashamed. He's gone out on track far too soon as well.
Yep, should have waited until the dying seconds, but it's not to be. He's got Brian Walsh on a lap. He's 2.3 seconds down at the second split. But if he puts it together, he might jump in front of Gary Neville if he has a solid run here through the final 2 turns.
Gary, not the best effort there. I really wish I'd been paying attention to this qualifying session rather than just looking at the timing.
And Walsh does, in fact, jump in front of Gary Neville. It is 1.4 down on Coops in front. And we've got Steve. He's about to begin his hot lap. And he is the last driver in the server to not set a lap.
This qualifying session is going to wrap up way earlier than the last one. And it could be about to wrap up now.
And, he binned it. He's deliberately binned it after going wide. If he had have kept going, I figure he might have been able to pip Glenn Miles, but in fact, he's decided just to spin it around and he's had enough. So That is your qualifying session with 6 minutes to go. So Wayne Whitmore will go 2 from 2 in the 2 qualifying sessions tonight. 1 minute 21.941 in this session. Termo will start alongside in P2 on a 22.638. Brendan Ross will be pretty frustrated with his lap on a 22.7. It could have been quite a bit better. Lee Sandford, P4. Coops in P5. Brian Walsh, P6. Gary Neville, P7. Glenn Miles, P8. And Steve, obviously, going off just moments ago. So, I think with 5 minutes, we'll go for another break. But I think we might just skip the qualifying session ahead to warm up so we can let the drivers go back out on track and do a bit of practice.
I hope we see some donuts.
Donuts would be nice. In fact, I'd love a Krispy Kreme donut right now.
Rather regret saying that.
Alright, so we're just going to take a short break and we shall be back. But the session has been moved to the warm-up, so obviously when we do come back, we'll have some drivers out on track. And we can follow them for a little bit and talk some more trash about dictators and drug lords.
I look forward to it.
And welcome back. We've got 5 minutes left in the warm-up. Most drivers out on circuit. Looks like Wayne Whitmore's about to set a very quick lap time, but it's in qualifying. It's in warm-up, so it doesn't count for anything because it's not qualifying. It's not the race. It's just a bit of time to kill between qualifying and the race. But he said a 1 minute 20.7 is 3/10 up. What does he do? A 1:20.393. So a very quick lap time, but it means absolutely nothing except that he's in very good touch before, obviously, the second race. So that's the fastest time that has been set all race weekend.
It's not. It is too.
It is too. Take a look at live races, you pleb. And
fact.
Okay, I will. But yeah. So just back on the topics of dictators. Obviously, I've mentioned Saddam, and I did ask you about the South American drug lords and dictators. If we were to stretch that around the globe, who would be obviously a couple of your other favourite dictators and drug lords that have been around?
Oh, Mr. Potato Head.
Yeah.
He was a tater, and he was certainly a dick.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I peaked that one too early there. You can't really go. Yeah, as soon as you mention Mr. Potato Head, as far as dictators go, and just who else is even worth a mention?
Fair enough. Fair enough. Got nothing else to add, really.
I know I don't. I know you're a fan of September 11 conspiracies, so why don't you tell us about them?
What was that, sorry?
You're a fan of September 11 conspiracy theories?
Oh, yeah, I mean, they're just, look, as you all know, when you fly a plane full of, that's got about 80 tons worth of fuel on board, and obviously you fly it at great speed into a building, the building's not going to be able to come down because, jet fuel can't melt steel beams. And we all know that it was a conspiracy by the Americans and aliens, and
the royal family.
And the royal family, because they wanted to get rich.
Or off?
They wanted to get rich off farming minerals.
What kind of farming minerals?
Just, like for mineral water.
Did they have a stockpile of springs for spring water?
They didn't. That's why they invaded Iraq. And in the comments, we've got Mike Coulson said he's a fan of Stalin. He did like to murder millions for fun. Certainly did. And even when he was trying to help the country by obviously propelling them a few years forward with the Great Leaps and such, he still managed to kill 30 million people by obviously taking all the farmers away and having people that had never been on a farm to farm. And obviously that led to, just a couple people, dying. And Mao, he came around 20 years later and thought he could do the same thing and it wouldn't kill anybody. And, there's 50 million dead people and Chinese, bodies going down rivers to attest that that didn't quite go as well is what he would have liked.
What kind of test?
A maths test.
Maths test.
Yep.
I'm gonna not get myself into trouble. It's gonna let you just freestyle for 45 seconds. I bite my tongue.
Yeah, I'm not. I think Mao's only good. Mao.
Holy shit!
Yes.
My iPad's on the move here.
Your iPad is on the move.
Yeah, it's trying to get away.
Fair enough.
I took up 25 seconds.
And just another point of note on these, especially these communist dictators, is that I love that these nice guys, they do, despite their, let's just say, minor mistakes that have killed hundreds of millions of people. People still want to turn to these people in modern times and think that communism in the modern day, in any day where obviously people are people, can work. So I think those people are truly, I'd like to say, hashtag blessed.
Thank you all very much for joining us. We'll see you next week. So we're just gonna suck from this. If you're watching this for entertainment, just turn your computer off now. Oh shit, you got YouTube on phones these days, don't you?
Yes. It's we've just ticked over to the warm. So the racing is about to start, thankfully. So can everybody please hurry up and grid up, because filling time, as you can tell, is not our strong suit. We might have
still got 40 seconds.
Oh geez, that's enough time to bring up Google and to search some terrible facts of something.
I had a question for you.
Yes?
I can't remember what it was.
That's very helpful.
Do you know what it was?
No.
Oh.
But considering we're in Argentina, in the 40 seconds for drivers to actually, grid up, I've just Googled 50 fascinating facts about Argentina.
Oh.
But
I like that.
I can definitely tell you one. One fact is I can tell you it's not on this list, but number one should be they got their asses kicked in the Falklands War. I mean,
I need this list.
It's not on the list, but it should be. And just think, these islands are just off the coast, and England with their navy was getting a little bit smaller, and they didn't want to spend costs, and they had to send all their troops over there, and they still somehow managed to take the island back. But yeah, well done, Argentina.
And on that note, we've got Wayne Whitmore starting from pole position after another strong qualifying performance.
Certainly do.
Following him, we've got Termo, again strong in qualifying, but we're hoping to have a better end to his race this time. Third place, again, is Brendan Ross. He made a whoopsie in the other race that I've completely forgotten what actually entailed, but that's what happened, without knowing what happened. Fourth place is Lee Sanford. He's had a very good qualifying session for this one. Fifth, and ahead of Sanford on track right now, is Coops. Possibly Coops Wah. Brian Walsh in sixth place. He's done alright there. He'll be looking for a bit more. Seventh place is Gary Neville. Eighth place, Glenn Miles. Ninth place is apparently Scott Murrell. Even though I think the game's been a bit rude there. And in 10th place is the disappointment of Steve Bolger.
Well, all Steve had to do is just complete a lap and set a lap time, and he wouldn't have been there. But obviously, that's what happens. He just decided, after making the mistake at turn 1, to press escape, and obviously Scott's joined the server after qualifying, and it's put him in front. So, just a lesson for those out there. I don't think it'll make too much of a difference being one place further back, but obviously something for those to think about in the future. Just coming up.
Speaking of lessons for those out there, Argentina is governed under a federal presidential constitutional republic and established their government after declaring their independence from Spain on July 9th, 1816.
And there you go. That is fact number 2 on that list.
We've got the same list. I'm just going to pick them at random.
So Whitmore and Termo just about to form up on the grid. And I think Ross will be hoping for another fantastic start. Termo will be hoping to get a decent start, and Whitmore will be hoping he doesn't bog it down like he did first time out. So Morrill, the last one to form up there. And we're racing. Once again, looks like Ross got a decent start. Termo got away okay. And I think Whitmore's got a better start this time, but he's got Ross right behind him. And he'll give Whitmore something to think about all the way down to turn 2. And in fact, he's probably going to have a... Is he going to have a look? No, he's just staying in the slipstream for now. And no, he's having a look. No, just swerving around. And all the front 3 very close together there, as you can see on screen.
Looks like Ross just trying to wear out Whitmore's
Oh, and I think
a little bit of a tap there from Termo there for Ross.
Yeah, looked like a little bit of a tap there, a bit squirrely, and got yellow flags out. So that's Brian Mulch has gone around in the number 7, and
all kinds of good shit was going on up the back for a second there. They were swapping positions like swingers in the 60s.
Oh, and Neville's off at turn 4, and that's going to drop him down to 8th place. Bolger is up to 7th, Morrill up to 6th, Coops in 5th, Sanford 4th, Termo 3rd, Ross having a look there at as he gets it very sideways on the entry there. He's pushing very hard, and even onto the grass a little bit there. He's just over driving it at the moment. He's wide at the final turn. It's going to give Termo a good run, and that's going to give Whitmore breathing room, and Whitmore's probably going to drive away if Ross keeps driving like that.
Yeah, Ross again just needs to bring himself back in a little bit, just make sure he's getting the laps in it and gonna be there at the end in the top 3 so he can continue to fight. Just needs to stop overdriving the car.
He's had a decent run through the first turn. Problem is that Termo behind him's got the slipstream and he's edging ever closer, as you can see on the onboard. But Termo, Ross ran a little bit wide there at turn 2, turn 2, and Termo's closed in. He has a look.
Termo looking up the inside,
but not quite close enough. So the gap between Whitmore and Ross 1 second, and then the gap between Ross and Termo about 1/10 of a second. Then behind him, Sanford 2 second gap. Behind Sanford is Scott Morrill. So Morrill's passed a couple of cars there, and Coops has dropped down, and Morrill or Bolger in 7th place. So once again, Ross sideways. He's having a lot of trouble.
Ross had Termo with the arse right out there. That was great, actually. I loved that.
Well, you had the gap down. He closed in the middle sector, had Ross, but that slide cost him a good 6/10 of a second in that final sector there. So it's just that one corner. He's certainly got to get it right, because it compromises obviously that corner, the penultimate corner, and the final turn. And the cars are starting to spread out a little bit, unfortunately. Although that said, I think we'll see Bolger and probably Morrill look to pass Sanford at some point.
Yeah, those two should be our entertainment factor in this race starting at the back of the field. We both know that they're not back of the field drivers.
Yep, so Morrill got that gap to Sanford down to 8/10 of a second now.
Do you know that the port of Buenos Aires is where approximately 80% of the country's imports and exports arrive into the park?
I do now. That is a very interesting Argentina fact.
It's number 25.
Oh, and Morrill is around. I don't know if he lost it by downshifting too much, or if he just clipped the grass there, or a combination of both. But we'll just have a look on the replay. Just lost it. Lost it under braking, and she goes half spin, and cut back from the replay, and Coops is around. Just have a look at that. So, looks like Bolger made a move for Coot. No, he's having a look after that incident. He was giving...
Bolger now right behind Murrell.
He gave... so Coop's got ahead. And, no, Coop's just ran wide on the exit and went around. So, that was the end of that. And yeah, there is Bolger.
Again, Bolger using all the exits from turn 1 as well.
Oh,
we've got Thermo around repeatedly.
And Murrell got rear-ended there by Bolger. Murrell braked for turn 2. You don't have to brake, and as you said, there's Turmo around, so it's all kicked off here.
Sanford is out of the race. Not sure what happened to him there. My camera didn't quite catch that.
Yeah, so Turmo just lost it mid-corner. Oh, so what happened? What happened to Sanford was, I believe that's the number 15 car, and he hit the number 15 car and hit him hard at turn 2, and that was the end of that. So I'll just try and... So that was Turmo. He ran into Turmo, who went off at turn 2, and he had nowhere to go. And we'll see Turmo's now got significant damage in that thing. He's got a puncture, as you can see on screen, with his tyre smoking there. And he'll blow his engine if he keeps revving it like that. That's Turmo. Oh, we've had Brian Walsh just have a spin. So it's all kicked off here. So what's Brian Walsh done? And he's just coming way too hot there. You need your brakes for that corner, mate. And around he goes.
Well, we've been caught up with all that. Whitmore now leads Ross by over 4 seconds, and Ross in turn has over 10 seconds behind him to Gary Neville in third place. So it's over 2 seconds in front of Stolly. So it's spread out. The top 3 or 4 are spread out quite a bit in the last lap, really.
Oh, we've got Morrill around. He's lost it under braking at turn 3.
Top 5 is now spread out quite a bit.
And hopefully he doesn't rejoin in front of Coops. He doesn't. And so the battle between Morrill and Bolger that was about to take place, well, that's now ended. And now Bolger can just focus on Gary Neville, who's 1.7 seconds up the road. Scratch that, make that 1.5. So he's a bit quicker than Gary Neville.
Yeah, Ross also very comfortable in second place. He's still got that car moving around quite a lot, and he doesn't need to be driving this hard with less than half the race to go and such a big gap behind him.
Bolger down in P4 is set his personal best of the race at 21.2, and Gary Neville set his personal best of the weekend of a 21.8. So both these guys driving at a higher level at the moment, but they're still obviously well behind Ross and Whitmore.
Glenn Miles looks to have had an issue. Looks like he's just come back on track as the leaders go past.
Let's just have a look at the replay. So let's just have a look, and he's lifted off at turn 2 again. So I think someone's going to have to tell him that you don't lift. You don't get off the throttle for turn 2, because it's a couple of spins he's had there, and if he didn't lift through there, he wouldn't spin, and he'd probably find about 4 seconds.
Another thing that someone might like to tell him is...
Morrill is around again. Sorry to cut you off.
I was just going to say another thing that someone might like to tell Glenn Miles is that Argentines consume the second most beef per capita in the entire world, only being beaten out by Hong Kong.
Well, there you go. Argentina loves their beef. And battle for third is it's now commenced now. A gap is 0.3 of a second. Bolger a 22.0. Neville must have made a mistake somewhere. He did a 23.2 with Whitmore setting the fastest lap of the race of a 20.5. So he's going along quite nicely. Might have to start whacking some weight on some drivers if he keeps doing times like that. Looks like Gary Neville's going to have a bit of a job to do. He's got 4 or 5 laps to hold on to that final podium place. As Bolger has a look into turn 3.
Turmo, who's gone from third place to sitting behind the position 2 driver, so not really changed much visually. He's just 2 laps behind now.
Was through turn 4 there. Neville on the curb, lost the back end, and that's going to give Bolger a good run to turn 6. And he'll take that place. So Bolger now up to P3. And Neville now to P4 as they come across lap traffic. I think that's Glenn Miles, and he made that a little bit awkward there for Steve.
I was gonna say something interesting about the race, but I've given up rather quickly there.
Well, there's nothing too interesting going on, unfortunately, at the moment. So we've got Whitmore 6.7 seconds out in front, and Ross is 13, almost 14 seconds in front of Bolger. And then obviously a little bit of a gap between Bolger and Neville. Then behind Neville is a 10-second gap to Coops. And 13 or 12.5 seconds behind Coops is Scott Morrell. And then Scott Morrell has got 30-second gap over Brian Walsh. And Brian Walsh has got a 35-second gap over Glenn Miles. So those got pretty much everybody except that. It looks like Morrell's had a spin and looks like he's going to DNF. So looks like he's had a spin at the penultimate turn. Looks like he's had some kind of technical issue. And, well, he has got it going again, but yeah, something obviously hindering him there. And let's drop him down. He's got Brendan Ross right behind him, so he might, hopefully he doesn't hold up Ross as they go through turn 1. And looks like he's going to get out of his way.
Yeah, Imara getting out of the way of Ross there at the first real opportunity he had once he got that car going again.
Yeah, so rather dull race so far.
It was great for a lap and a half.
Oh, as you see Brian Walsh around at, I think that's turn 4, or turn 3. So that puts him a lap down.
Oh shit, I got a sneeze.
Yes. So those that are watching, if you do have like any questions or want to talk about anything, please bring it up, because looks like we're in for a little bit of a quiet patch here. That said, we do have a little bit of... No, Gary Neville's found his way in front of Steve, so I'll just have to see what has happened here. So going through turn 2 is Mr. Bolger, and dare I say, he's made a mistake here at turn 3 under braking and lost the rear end. No, he's just let him go. That is very weird. That is very, very odd.
Perhaps not putting in the right fuel load and is now going into a massive conservation mode.
Yeah, he is short shifting massively, and that's right on board with him. So it looks like he's in a bit of trouble at the moment. 27.5, and as we saw, I don't think he went off the track, so that's all fuel saving. He is in 4th gear, turn 1.
Yeah, that's a bit of a whoopsie.
Yeah, it's certainly not something you want to do, but he's got to save for obviously this lap and the next.
Well, he will be focusing quite hard on saving fuel, much like the focus in Argentina on good looks extends beyond just plastic surgery. The country has the highest per capita rates of anorexia in the world. Well, not only that, but the problem is not confined to just females, Lewis.
Or perhaps...
research has shown that 1/8 of patients being treated for the disease are male.
Well, dare I say, they do love their beef. Perhaps they should just get some beef into them and not be as friggin' skinny.
Get some pork on your fork.
Yeah, get some...
That's probably copyright infringement. We're about to be sued. Up the wazoo.
Oh well, we did just see that Scott Morrell had a bit of a spin, and as he runs wide once again, he's down in 7th, having a bit of a torrid time. He's behind Brian Walsh. Gary Neville, 24th round the lap, so he made a mistake and Bolt just sped up. He did a 23.8, so perhaps he doesn't have to save as much. As a bit more on his they're on their final lap now.
Yeah, one could say that Whitmore is setting up. My segues are getting too desperate. One could say that Whitmore's setting a rather hot pace out the front. Interestingly enough, Argentina holds the record for both the highest and the lowest recorded temperatures on the continent.
Well, there you go. He's coming up to lap 11 miles in this final corner, the final lap. So coming out of the final turn, Whitmore will take 2 from 2. And here it is, his winner of race 2 of a fairly uneventful second half of that race. Brendan Ross will claim P2. Fairly lonely race for him, and Steve has got in front of Gary Neville, so we'll have to see what has happened.
Well, Ross has just claimed to have done his fastest lap on the last lap, and frankly, I think it's appalling that he'd be so sluggish to point that out.
So Gary Neville had third in the bag, but at turn 3 outbroke himself, and then allowed Bolger through to claim P3, and Gary Neville will finish P4 right behind him. And Coops he's got a lapped Scott Moore right behind him, but Coops will take P5, and Brian Walsh a lap down, finish in P6. Scott Moore will finish P7, and Glenn Miles P8. Termo couple laps down, P9, and Lee Sanford the only non-finisher of race 2.
Interesting question. Possibly not interesting. Historically, if for reverse grid races, if one fails to finish, they start from where they DNF. So if you DNF first, you therefore start last. In a case of a reverse championship one, which he's not in, so I guess that's irrelevant anyway, because he'd likely be starting last.
Well, that's it. He's not registered, so he's starting last.
So fuck you.
Yes.
Who said that?
I don't know.
Well, just give me a second to see if there's an amazing fact about swearing in Argentina.
Yes. Yes. Indeed.
Well, that fact is just stupid. Well, that was an interesting race, Lewis.
It was interesting in that it was not interesting.
Oh, it was interesting. It just wasn't exciting.
I disagree.
Alright, it was exciting in that it wasn't interesting.
Neither.
It was crap.
It was pretty boring. So we do urge drivers to just put on an absolute show in their second race. Or third race, I should say.
It's hard to keep up.
It is. We don't count over 2 at Automobilista Australia, so this is pretty big for us.
Surely there's got to be something about keeping it up in these facts. South America, that's all they do.
Oh dear.
Maybe that falls into the superficial thingy that I said earlier.
Possibly.
You know that wheat is the leading crop in Argentina? It produces so much wheat. It's the fifth leading wheat exporting country in the world and grows over 60% of the wheat in South America.
Oh, there you go. There's another one. Well,
I spotted that one and I thought, oh, that actually is interesting.
Well, there you go. There's another interesting fact for everybody out there. But I think we'll just take a short break. Obviously, we've got to sort.
Thank God for that.
We've got to take a short break to set the reverse grid. Plus, we probably need to go grab a drink of some kind to dull the pain. So we shall be back in about 5 minutes time for obviously the rest of the warm up of or for race 3 and then for race 3 itself. So we will see you there.
Go to the videotape my time. Oh, no. So here's my first figure, guys. Watch the stumps. Bang, out of the ground. This next one is a bloke switches.
Good evening and welcome back. We're just about to tick over for race 3 of the second round of the Rookie Cup here at Cordoba. So, we've had 2 races, had the same winner in both of them. Can anybody stop Wayne Whitmore in race 3? Although, being race 3, there is a slight change this time out, with there being obviously a reverse of the championship standings. So, the grid is set. See, Lee Sanford isn't registered in the championship, so he will start at the back, and as will Scott Murrell, as he's a Pro B runner, although he is registered. But in front of him will be Wayne Whitmore starting in 8th place. But just ticked over. Drivers have about 40 seconds to form up onto the grid. And Scruff, have you got any interesting facts before we get going here?
Do I ever? Did you know that Argentina is the Latin American country that has the most Nobel Prize winners? 5 people from Argentina have won Nobel Prizes in the categories of science and peace. Which means they're a bunch of nerdy fucking hippies.
Nerdy hippies. You'll find a lot of those ones that did win Nobel Prizes for peace generally ended up causing a war of some sort. So, yeah, not quite. Not quite.
Producer certainly didn't tell me that. What are you doing, Rick? Yep.
Yeah, you should probably sack that guy. He's been pretty bad for you. Anyway, the formation lap has got underway. The reverse championship grid has been set, and that means Brian Walsh in his first round will lead us away from pole position. Gary Neville, he missed round 1 as well, so his starts in P3. Glenn Miles, the first of the ones that have scored in the championship, he'll start in P3. But Stuyve had a shocker in round 1. He'll start in P4, and probably a favourite for this one if he can get away cleanly. And then we've got Coops in P5. Brendan Ross in P6, not had an ideal start to his season. And we've got Termo P7, Wayne Whitmore P8, Scott Murrell P9, and Lee Sanford in P10.
Interesting fact, not related to Argentina.
Yes?
Both of our current reigning champions for Monday Night Series having awkward starts to their title defences. With Foley, of course, descriptive words that he won't get angry at for. Having a shit show.
Yeah, he certainly has had a horrific start to his touring car championship defense. You might as well say the championship's almost just about over for him unless he can pull out some extremely consistent results for the remainder of the season.
Speaking of pulling out, I'd like to congratulate Mr. Schwass on the birth of his first child. Something he didn't do, obviously, being pulling out.
Well, there you go. Congratulations, Mr. Schwass, and we do hope you and the family are well. And the drivers are now forming up onto the grid, with Ross doing a lot of weaving just before forming up there.
There's a race going to happen, isn't there?
Yes, in fact there is. So Glenn Miles has formed up. I believe he was the last one to form up. So you got 3, 4, 5, 6. We're away. And looks like Walsh got an okay start.
He's not too bad off the line there from Walshy. Ross with a decent start, it looks like, in the background.
Yeah, Walsh probably got the better of the first half of the field. Ross and Bolger side by side. They're going to go 3 wide with, I think that's Glenn Miles there. Bolger around the outside. Shades of Spa 2000. And Gary Neville now into the lead. And Walsh very slow there through turn 2. And looks like Bolger and Ross going to continue their battle into turn 3. Ross late on the brakes. Will he pull it up? He's ran wide. And he's just got on the marbles and ran wide. That's going to cost him.
Looked like he may have been caught out a little bit by Walsh in front there. Was Ross, or he just completely fucked it?
I think he just fluffed that one, and Bolger's trying to go around the outside into turn 6.
Oh,
on
big
Walsh.
moment there for Ross. Got to channel my inner stairs for the rest of this race, it would seem.
So, and now, oh, looks like Bolger sort of, Bolger sort of looked like he forced Turbo onto the grass a little bit there. As Bolger got a bad run. Yeah, he certainly looked like it. He certainly did look like he forced Turbo onto the grass, and unfortunately Turbo's now...
Oh my god, sorry to cut you off there, Lewis. They're going 3 wide into turn 1! It's the best stairs I've got.
Oh, Whitmore, now they're 3 wide on the exit. With Murrell, he's got a good slipstream. Might even get a double toe here now that Bolger's formed up behind Ross. So Ross is now in front of all of them. And Whitmore's backed out of it. Murrell is right behind Bolger in front.
Gary Neville's doing a good job
Oh,
here.
and
Kept out of the
Walsh is around, so it was Walsh. I apologise. Walsh who they were battling with. I don't know if there was contact made or if he lost it on his own there. Just have a look. You know, it's just outbroke himself and then had to slam on the brakes and avoid making contact. And unfortunately, that caught out Scott Murrell, who had to avoid that in front. So he just unfortunately wrecked his race. And that now leaves, obviously, Bolger, Ross, and Whitmore in 2nd, 3rd, 4th, with Gary Neville's got a 2-second lead over Stoive.
Yes, Gary Neville off to a very excellent start.
Yes, indeed, indeed, and he set a 1 minute 22.2 on that last lap. And Bolger 21.9. So only a couple of tenths faster. As you see, Ross runs very wide at turn 1. That's going to give...
Oh, that's the Bolger line there, but that is going to give Whitmore a bit of a
I reckon
down here.
I reckon he'll get that. I reckon he'll just pull alongside. No, he's going to backs out of it into turn 2. But we have seen other drivers sort of push to iffy territory in other series like that, and it's caused issues. So Whitmore's smart enough to back out of it. There's still plenty of laps to go.
Rookies from time to time do like to show the rest of us how it's done.
Well, more often than not, they race with a lot more respect than those that you'd think, would. But hopefully it rubs off on everybody else at some point. So you see...
Sorry.
I know what you're thinking.
I've got a lot of jokes about a Mr. Schwartz here.
So it looks like Bolger lost a little bit of time for that final turn. It's allowed Ross to close in a little bit, and right behind Ross is Whitmore. So these guys are in for a little bit of a scrap here. So I think all Neville has to do is just be consistent. If he just remains consistent throughout this race, with the way Whitmore...
Ross again a bit wide in the first corner, sorry Lewis.
No, it's alright. As long as Neville keeps it consistent, does low to mid 22s, if these guys keep battling, it's going to give obviously Gary a good opportunity to nick a win. If you can just hold on. That said though,
Steve is right up his arse.
Yes, he's right behind his clacker.
Oh, Whitmore goes through on Ross.
And Bolger wide there on the curve. That's dropped him into the clutches of Whitmore, has to be said a little bit. So he was pressurising Neville, and now Whitmore's thinking we've got a chance of getting him here.
It is now an ideal situation for Gary Neville, who's a little bit wide on entry there.
Yeah, that's cost him time, and now it's a 4-car strap.
Whitmore and Ross going at it here behind. It's giving Stoive a little bit of breathing room, not much at all though.
And Neville's wide at the final turn. It's going to give Bolger a good run into turn 1 and into obviously turn 2, and more having a look on the inside. I think that's more just to pick a braking point than anything else. Is Bolger had to get off the throttle there, so it looks like Neville's braking point caught him out a little bit, and it also caught Whitmore out a little bit. So now we've got Ross side by side with him, And Ross now is up into P3.
These guys have been waiting to use this in a broadcast. They are nuts to butts.
There's Bolger on wide. Oh, he's run into the back of Neville. That is really, really unfortunate for Gary Neville. Innocent victim. Bolger running wide on the grass and losing it under braking and then just careening straight into the back of Neville, who was driving a very good race up until that point, and now it's between Ross and Whitmore for the lead. Hopefully these guys battle it out and have a sort of half spin between them and go back to a 4-car battle, but I don't think we'll see that. We'll just have to see, obviously, when Neville crosses the line what the gap is. Probably about, yeah, there it is, 4.5 seconds between Ross and himself.
Let's send out safety car. There we go.
We've got Ross wide in the final turn, and he's squeezing Whitmore to the inside before pulling to the outside there.
Looking for the drive back. He's got a good run through the first corner as Ross is right up the arse of Whitmore still, though.
He had to lift off because it was too close, and now Whitmore driving away a little bit once he pulled out of the toe there. It was Ross.
These guys are close. Ross is going to have a look under braking for turn 3.
He showed his nose, but to no avail. His yellow flag's out, so a car is around. I believe that's Brian Walsh. Yep, and he's going to make it a little bit awkward for these guys, but holds his line. And Neville was a tenth of a second faster than Whitmore in the first sector, but obviously he's going to need quite a bit of help to get back into this one. Ross having a look up the inside of the penultimate corner, but not quite close enough. Not a big enough braking zone there to really make it a passing opportunity. As you can see visually right there, Whitmore much better through the final turn, and that's where he's making up all his time in the final sector. He's 4/10 faster through one corner, and then it sets him up for obviously turn 1 here, and it sets him up, and then obviously going well through turn 1, it sets him up well for turn 2. So that sets Steve fastest lap of the race of 1:20.8. That's one of his fastest laps in any of the races so far. He did set a 1:20.5 in practice, I believe, but so in a race, I believe that's his fastest lap so far. But unfortunately, he's blown it because he's 6 seconds behind these guys up front.
Not only that, but Argentina is known for winning more international polo championships than any other country in the world.
Yeah, but the thing is, no one gives a stuff about polo, so...
Yes, but it was the shortest one I could find. It was something I could pronounce.
Yes.
Without any difficulty. I mean, I could have said polo.
I suppose, but back in the race with more purple first and second sectors. And,
yellow flag again, though. I've heard something
that is Glenn Miles, I believe. Yeah, it's Glenn Miles.
Glenn Millais.
And probably see Whitmore set the fastest lap of the race. 1:20.429. Yes, it is. And Brendan Ross sets a 1:20.9. So, my own mistake. I think this race is probably done. Unfortunately, Steve has robbed us of what would have been a very thrilling finale.
I hate Steve.
Ross slowly falling away from Whitmore. We'll go back to this battle for third, as obviously Steve has caught up to the back of Gary Neville now.
You've made that so much worse by just ignoring it.
Steve having a big dive and lunge into turn 3, and he's gonna make that stick. As Gary Neville very conservative through there. Coming up to, I believe that's Glenn Miles' back.
Keep an eye on the battle at the front. Ross has got it back down under a second to Wayne Whitmore. Whitmore looking like it's just a little bit out of sorts in the middle sector.
He did set a purple first sector though, so.
Well, it's
Yep.
back under. It's down to 7/10 Lewis. So pull your head out of your ass and get the camera on it.
Ross doing his personal best final sector.
Oh, what's his face? It's a long way off the track there.
Very wide, and it's given Ross. It will give Ross a chance into turn 3. He's not close enough into turn 2. So it'll give him a very good chance into turn 3.
Put back on the power nice and early if they are. Oh, freaking! That was close.
Pushing the limit. This was a bit more there. All 4 tyres sliding from turn 3. Are you right there?
Best noise ever just came from you. I need him. Oh, I'm good. I'm good.
So Ross sticking with a bit more for now.
Looks like Ross is just trying to set up the exit a little bit more from that final corner than Whitmore. That may pay dividends up into turn 3, or it may not. Those are your 2 options realistically. Less than 7/10 between them though. Best run through the first corner there from Ross. Exit looks okay.
It's not quite close enough, and Whitmore had a decent exit, so I don't think he's close enough for the slipstream.
Yeah, it'll just be down to the run they get through turn 2. Looks and sounds like they both got through there pretty uneventfully. Get back up to just over 7/10 of a second between the first and second place runners. I say runners, but they're actually driving.
Still a little bit of a flip in the throttle through turn 4 there for us. Quite hooking that corner up as well as he would have liked. He's dropped a couple tenths. Oh, he's dropped more than that now. He's around, and he might even. Yes, he's just clipped that the wall, or not the wall, the pole,
thing thing.
the pole
Thing thing.
where the Pirelli sign is held up. Pretty dangerous, but this is South America. We don't have any health and safety for race car drivers, and that allows Steve up into P2 and Whitmore to, well, on his final lap he can pretty much drive in reverse because he's going to take 3 from 3, and they're all going to be by over 10 seconds, unless he just parks it. Just cycle through the field, so obviously we've got Bolger in P3, Ross. Bolger P2, Ross P3, Neville in P4. Scott Morrell is P5. He's got 5-6 seconds behind Gary Neville, and then it's a big gap to the Coops, about 17 seconds. He's in P6. Lee Sanford P7. Turmo still going out there, despite obviously the incident early on, and he finds himself in P8. He's 50 seconds in front of Glenn Miles, who's 25 seconds in front of Brian Walsh, and they're both a lap down.
And Whitmore with one final attempt to throw a twist into that. Was very wide coming through the fucking L Racing corner, but keeping it pointing in the right direction.
And
rounds the final corner.
And he takes 3 from 3 in what has been and he sets the fastest lap of the weekend, 1 minute 20.282 on the final lap. So he takes 3 from 3, rather boring and bland race or finish to this one. Steve P2.
Luckiest man alive.
And Steve P2, and then Ross throwing it into the fence after he crosses the start-finish line for P3. Scott Morrell is P4. Gary Neville's made a mistake on the final lap.
Gary Neville has made a whoopsie.
On the exit.
Quite a few final lap whoopsies.
On the penultimate corner, on the exit, he lost the rear end and he's not happy with himself. He's thrown it into the fence. So he finishes P5. Scott Morrell P4. Coops will cross the line in P6. Lee Sanford P7. And Termo will be the last of the runners that aren't lapped, and he will finish. He should finish in P8 should he not blow his engine and obviously or bin it before the start-finish line here at the final turn.
Doesn't sound like he's done that.
No, he hasn't. He's just crossed the line, and Termo finishes P8.
He's actually had one of the best final laps of the evening.
And he's had a massive accident there with Glenn Miles. And there's another accident, someone flipping into a fence. And there's this guy there imitating his favourite NFL umpires by lifting both his arms up for saying it is good for a field goal. But once again, Wayne Whitmore...
Being South America, he could have been preparing for an orgy.
There you go. All that. Wayne Whitmore taking 3 from 3, all of them by over 10 seconds, with everybody sort of that could have challenged him, making it very, well, easy for Whitmore in the end. Bolger, P2. He unfortunately made contact with Gary Neville as they were battling for the lead at 4 or 5 laps in race 3 there, but he'll be happy to get some points on the board. Brendan Ross, P3. He'll be a little frustrated with, once again, a couple little errors creeping in and ruining even more results here in his rookie cup. Well, I wouldn't say defence because he's in the Pro B section this time out, but just the way his championship has gone on so far this season will be very frustrating for him. Scott Morrell, P4 in his second race of the season. Gary Neville, P5. Again, he could have been P4. With the mistake at the penultimate turn costing him. And then Coops, P5. Sanford, P7. And then Termo, Glenn Miles, and Brian Walsh. So I would ask for driver of the day, but that's a given with Wayne Whitmore. So I think for those that aren't Wayne Whitmore, I'd probably have to say, I think Gary Neville probably did a very solid job. For the most part, very consistent.
For the most part, yeah.
As he joins us here in TV time. Yeah, obviously, Gary, we might as well start the interviews with you then.
Okay.
Okay, Scruff is going to do the interview, so lead us away, Scruff.
Rossi, take us away.
Well done, Gary Neville.
Thanks, Rossi.
That plan backfired. Lewis, have at it.
Scruff, no, I believe it's your time to shine now, mate. I do it every other week. It's your turn now, mate.
Scotty, you can do the interviews if you want. Rossi, anyone?
Well done, Gary Neville.
Super job, Rossi.
Just like your race.
I think I've just ruined the post-race interview.
I think you have, Scruff, so you better start asking some questions. And
Gary, not the most successful night for you, but you showed some good pace early on in race 3.
Yeah.
You think if it wasn't for the thing that went down, you could have held on for the victory?
I don't think so. No, I wasn't fast enough.
That's brutally
Wayne Whitmore
honest
and
of you.
Rossi and that were faster than me. So yeah, the third or fourth was doable, but I kept spinning off, so that's what happened.
I don't have a follow-up, Lewis.
that's disappointing, Scruff. Just think of something.
What have you got planned for the rest of your day, Gary? I know it's relatively early where you are. And
Oh, I got planned. Well, yeah, half an hour or so, have some lunch. I don't know, watch some TV.
What have you got for lunch?
A bit of leftover Madras curry.
Kind of on a curry now.
Yeah.
Well done on your good drive. Anyway, I think you've done quite well.
Yeah, I didn't do too bad.
Given the circumstances that befell you.
Well, yeah. No, it's okay. It's fine. I enjoyed it. It's good racing.
We're all very proud of you.
Thanks.
Alright, you can do one now, Lewis. I've shown you how it's done.
I think you can conduct a full interview, mate. I think it's your turn.
Oh, shit. Hi, Wayne.
How you going?
I'm not bad. How are you?
Yeah, a bit worn out now.
Yeah, well, you smashed it, so there's really not much to ask you. How'd you do it? That's all I got.
Fair bit of practice actually, so feeling comfortable with them, doing a fair bit of practice, and yeah, pretty confident.
Do you have plans to have anything to eat after your evening?
I get to do that before.
Well, you could put some more thought into your answers. I'm really struggling here. Gary, would you like to do the interviews for me?
No, you're okay, mate.
Oh, god damn it. Ah, Mr. Whitmore. Oh shit, I thought he left. I got nothing. Why am I doing interviews?
Because you can do it, you're just lazy.
No, I suck. Wayne, I'd have more to ask you, but shut up. But you're just too good, and therefore I got nothing. So I'm gonna say well done, and then I'm gonna move on, if that's okay with you.
Thank you. Yeah, I did. Still enjoyed it. The second race was plenty of battle to get through the field, and not easy cars to drive for everyone. But yeah, a bit of practice, and they get better.
Yes, I should have asked you about driving the cars the way you did so successfully, shouldn't I?
I learnt to steer with the pedals, not the steering wheel.
Useful advice you've just given your competitors.
Yeah, I did throw the setup. Not that setup changes much for these, but I did throw a setup across to the boys if it helps them. But setup doesn't change a lot for these cars. It's mostly in the handling of the rear, keeping the rear contacted to the ground.
Well, that's useful. I might race next time and take your advice. But well done again, and now we move on to Lewis, who's going to ask someone else a question.
I believe I will. I guess we'll...
Oh my god.
So, Scruff, could you
Oh,
please ask
shit.
Steve a couple questions?
Okay, Rossi. I was going to ask him something, but I couldn't even think of something to that. Steve,
Scruff.
are you well?
Very well, mate.
That's
How are
good.
you going?
I'm in quite a mood, and I'm going to be having a talking to a Lewis after this. Believe me. Hold on, I need to check the results. What did you actually do this evening?
Crash.
What happened?
At times I drove well. At times my quality of driving was up there with the post-race interviews.
Says it all right there. Good work, Scruff.
That was the best response to any question ever. It's not going well, is it?
No.
Champagne broadcasting.
Whiskey, thank you very much. Lewis, what should I ask him next?
You should probably ask him about his struggles at turn 1 that he seemed to have.
Yeah, what was going on there?
I tried to go sideways around it as much as possible, which was a bad idea.
Yeah, why'd you do that?
Because Wayne kept pulling away from me in that corner, so I overdrove.
Perhaps
Didn't
if you hadn't gone sideways, you would have gone through quicker.
Well, I started with that plan. That didn't work either. I was
Are you
trying
okay?
Something different.
Are you okay?
I'm always okay.
Confident, I like that. That's sexy.
Scruff, you're making me blush.
Where's Chris Gale? Am I done yet, Lewis?
Yes, I think we're done. Obviously, I think we'll just about wrap this up. We won't do any more interviews. And obviously next time out, we'll make sure that Scruff gets more practice in and does more interviews. I know he's deliberately doing badly, so he doesn't do it in the future. But we do want to
No,
have him.
I'm genuinely going to write
No.
down some actual freaking questions so I can genuinely ask people rather than be slightly drunk and
Yeah,
scared.
we'll see about that. But we'll just obviously wrap this up at Automobilista Australia. Trying to think what we have on Thursday night. I believe
Lancers,
it is the Mitsubishi Lancers or the
Bathurst,
Super Series Bathurst. That is the final round, I believe.
final round.
Yep, there you go.
There you go.
It will be hosted by ARW TV crew. It should be very interesting.
Stairs.
Yes, with stairs.
No, he'll be hosting.
Yes.
Yes, rather yes.
Yes, should be a couple interesting. It'll be interesting to see how people tackle the Mount Panorama circuit in those cars. Might see a couple engine failures into the chase with the way people downshift in those things too. And then on Sunday night, we once again have GT3 mini series or fun series for obviously people to test for the obviously next season's WEC and the possible Bathurst endurance event around the time the real life Bathurst 12 hour is on. So we will be trying to get together a Bathurst endurance event early next year at some point. So obviously testing these cars out will, I guess, hope, or we do hope, aids people choosing their cars for next WEC season and for obviously that event.
Yes, we hope it gives you all AIDS.
Well, we don't, but obviously the the GD3 event on Sunday won't be broadcast. None of them have been. They might be streamed by Scruff or a couple others, but it will be.
No, I can't do that anymore.
Well, there you go. But it will be from Bahrain, and then I believe there'll be I think one more.
Silverstone. No, is it Silverstone?
Yes, but that's next year. I was going to say, and the next event at Automobilista Australia after that on Monday is the touring cars, which the touring car championship, which I believe. Trying to find a calendar of that. Yes, it is next Monday. It is from Salvador.
Oh, fuck.
So that will be a very interesting event. Obviously around the streets there. Saw some good racing there last season, and hopefully we see some more, and hopefully see a couple new winners. So obviously, thanks for those that have tuned in. Once again, well done to Wayne for his victories tonight, and for all those out there, have a good one.